right, good morning, everybody. Nikki Burnett here today, Stays Life Nutrition Radio and podcast streaming live on KUHSdenver.com. Today we have Molly Claire. I'm super excited about this because those of us who are in the world of coaching knows that coaching can be really difficult. And then making a business out of training coaches, I think, is also difficult. But it is also super fun. So I'm excited to jump into this for my own sake because I always want to know what I can do better. But when we have the opportunity to pick the brain of someone who is training the best and has made a 7-figure business out of it, I mean, these are the people that we want to talk to, right? So thank you, Molly. Thanks so much for being here. I'm super excited.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. I love the work that you do, and I know we're going to have a great conversation.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. So, as always though, first things first, we start the show with gratitude. Gratitude can change the world. I fully believe that. So, Molly, what are you grateful for?
You know, I every day I have a journal that has like specific prompts every day, right? And one of the things is what I'm grateful for, and it seems like the theme over the last couple weeks, it really is recognizing how grateful I am and how unique it is that I understand enough about my brain to know that I can create positivity and goodness every single day.
Absolutely.
Because it's right there inside of us.
It is. It is. And it's such a great attitude to have and a great perspective because things can be really flipping hard, right? And there is always something to be grateful for. There's always something in there that we can pull out and say, okay, this, I don't care what it is, but there's always something to be grateful for. And what you said, I think, is so true that so many of us don't realize is, me being one of those, is knowing ourselves. I'm learning to know myself every day. I'm learning to know my brain. What does it mean when I do certain things, or when I say certain things, or when I feel or think certain things, right? These are the things that help us to understand ourselves, but it's also why we have coaches, because it's hard to see outside of ourselves, right? And so to have somebody help you talk through it helps you get to know you, helps me get to know me better and at a deeper level.
Yes.
So,
yes, it's so ironic. Literally yesterday was the first week of my new group of master coaches in training. And the first thing we talk about is how well do you know yourself, right? Because as coaches, as agents of change in others, we have to first make sure we know ourselves well, and then, right, as we can help our clients, as individuals better know themselves, that's how we can know what we truly want and what is actually in our way of getting there. So
I love that. I'm excited to dig into that. So real quick, what am I grateful for? You know what I'm grateful for today? Coming up, so I have been collaborating with and doing project work with Veros Health, which is an immunology clinic, big clinic to build a wellness program. And we are having our grand opening on the 30th, so we're super excited about that. So I think that's what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to work in collaboration with, which is sometimes not easy to say, but with conventional medicine, right? And so bringing in the conventional with the functional, or you can call it, whatever you want to call it, regenerative or, holistic. It doesn't really matter. It's bringing them together in order to best support the patients. And so it's been a really big project, and still is, and is continuing, but we're moving forward, having the grand opening. I'm really excited about that. So grateful for this opportunity. I collaborate with a number of physicians, and it's just really great to be able to support their patients. It's really a good place to be. Yeah.
Amazing. And giving a little more hope to some of the things some of the news sometimes we can get from a doctor that doesn't feel very hopeful.
It's true. And I think that what I have learned more than anything is conventional medicine is necessary, but is difficult because insurance gets in the way, right? We use it, we utilize it, but it gives doctors 10 minutes, 15 minutes in with them. So questions that need to be answered or not answered, lab questions that need to be answered or not answered, what's going on with me, what can I do instead, and so it's a difficult place to be for the physician or the provider. So what I love about it is they come to me, and that's what I do, is I get to spend the time and talk through things with them and help them understand and learn their body, learn what's going on, what can they do on a day-to-day basis to maybe help to support their situation so they can get better quicker. Yeah, it's really been a fascinating character building, quick learning experience, right? Everything has just catapulted me to a different level. And it's also a different level of understanding that there's so much more I need to know. Right? There always is.
Isn't that the truth?
It is. So anyway, I want to jump in, but just sort of a quick throw in there. If you are in the Denver area and you are in Cherry Creek, we are having our opening in Cherry Creek on the 30th at 4:30 to 6:30. So super excited about that. It's going to be good stuff. So we will move on to you. I want to hear your story because you have a great story. Well, and that's what I love. Everybody I talk to who is in this position as you are, where you are learning, you have learned that your history has brought you to a place of service. And so you're here to, and I say this all the time, but it will always be true. You that are here to give, to love, to serve, to teach, to learn, all of these things all wrapped up, as I think many of us as searchers and people who are curious are. But there's always a really good story. So tell me about you. Tell all of us about you and what brought you here, and then what excites you.
Okay, so I feel like there are so many different elements of my story and different twists and turns, of course, and I know we don't have all day, so I'm going to try to give you the highlights, the Cliff's Notes, and then you can redirect and cut in so we keep this really relevant to those listening here. So I found coaching at an interesting time, specifically in relation to the work that you do, as a matter of fact. So it was, just over 10 years ago, and I had been suffering with chronic fatigue syndrome, had gone to so many medical providers trying to figure out what was wrong, was diagnosed with eosinophilic gastroenteritis as well, which I know you know what that is, right?
Yeah.
So I've been having all these various health issues that were kind of mysterious and ambiguous, and then I had really been hit with this fatigue. And as a high energy person, this was just like my worst nightmare, to not have the energy physically that I needed and wanted, right? And so I'm at this point, I was getting better, but I still wasn't totally myself. But of course, it had completely changed my life. And as a result, I started feeling more depressed. I had, I was just kind of going through it. And I had 3 young kids, and my marriage wasn't doing so great. And it was a lot. It was one of those moments in time. Well, I had this mini session with a coach that was just like a practice session for them, because they were learning more about specifically mindset coaching and how our thoughts impact us. And so I did this just kind of as a one-off favor, and yet this moment is now one that is stuck in my mind. I remember where I was when I was on the phone having this coaching session, and I really started to realize in that moment the space between what was happening for me in my life and things that had happened in my life, and the thoughts and viewpoints I had on all of those things, right? So this is just kind of a little sliver, a glimpse into this moment. But the bottom line is that this was really, really impactful for me. And I started to feel like maybe there was a little bit of hope that more things could get better for me more quickly than I realized. So anyway, having said this, really impactful for me. I just thought, I know I need to be a part of this at some point, in some way. This is not the time, right? I've got so much going on, but I feel in my bones like I want to help people with this change. And I always had, been a helper in different ways in my life, different things that I'd done and done different entrepreneurial things. But pretty soon there was an opportunity for the school opened one more training, and it was like going to be taught by the founder herself. So I jumped on it, and everything just kind of moved at rapid speed from there. So
I love, and I just want to interject just half a second, is when you just know, right? You're like, this is just it. This is the place. It goes the way that it's supposed to. That's how it was for me with nutrition school. I was like, all right, here we go. And I'm in fast and furious. So that's, I just love that. Very good.
Yeah. I mean, really, I remember I was on my back porch on the phone. I remember this moment. I was like, yes, like this is what I need to do. So I got trained, I got master certified, and I started, as I was building my business, I was simultaneously also helping to train coaches and designing curriculum. So I had this interesting experience of having, one foot in my own business, figuring out how to build a business, which I had no idea how to do, by the way, right? So not only was I learning the coaching skills, which did come, I would say, very naturally to me, because it was just like very, very in line with a lot of my natural abilities, right? But then I'm learning how to build a business from the ground up, which is a whole
so hard.
So I was doing that while simultaneously seeing the ins and outs on the back end of a very successful business and helping to train coaches in their coaching abilities. So as it tends to happen in life, these two worlds kind of came together and collided. And so what I do now, and I know I'm skipping some important parts of the story that I know you specifically want us to talk about in terms of overcoming belief and such. We can come back to that. But, now I really am I love the work that I do because I'm honored to support heart-centered coaches, women who are purpose-driven, to be able to really master their skills and their abilities to support their clients, while simultaneously supporting them in navigating the bumpy road of building a business. And I love the work that I do. I get to do deep work with my clients, working with their mind, working with their emotions, and helping them to have really effective ways of working with their clients while being very solid in who they are. So I love it.
It's a hard place to be, to continue to build on your craft, what you do, and then do this thing over here, which is called building a business, which is not what most of us who are in this place of service we've not been trained on how to build a business. For me, which it's my own fault, for me, specifically, I went through college, I went through grad school, I'm like, I just care about science. That's all I want to do. I just like science. Why do I want to build a business? Why do I want to know business? I just want science. And then here I'm going, oh man, I only known,
I know, right?
It's so silly. But I never thought that I would be an entrepreneur. It wasn't in my mind at all to be an entrepreneur until, I, went to nutrition school. And what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to start a business. I'm not going to go work for a school. I'm going to go start a business, and here we go. And 10 years later, here we are, and it's fascinating and still really hard. And now I'm helping to build another one. And like, great, here we go again.
Here we go.
Point all of that, though, is being able to support someone in the process of building their business while they're also growing in who they are and helping their clients grow in who they are. I mean, there's a lot to that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there is a lot to it, and that's why it's like, you know, in the way that I support my clients is coaching mastery, right? Where I'm teaching them the fundamentals of how to support their clients in change, and then I have to support them personally because it's like when we're helpers, when we're givers, can be, I will say this, it can be very difficult for us to really see validity in us having our own needs, right? And so I provide that for them. It's like, who helps the helper, right? Well, I do, and then I have my own help, right?
Yeah.
So I support them personally, and then also provide that support with regard to business, because those are really three distinct areas that they need support in. And especially, you know, when you're building a business, it is something that is going to challenge you to your core. It pushes up against all of your limiting beliefs, all of your greatest fears. It challenges you to really believe in your own capabilities, which can be pretty challenging to do. So it's we need that support. We need that support.
We do need that support.
Yeah.
So I think so much of this is going to come from my own history, I think, but I believe that this is often sort of a typical trajectory. You start out gung-ho, at least I did, and then you're like, what am I doing? How am I going to do this? How do I wear all of the hats? How do I help people? How do I talk the talk and walk the walk, which is still a tough one. And then all of these questions come in, and that's when the doubts come in, and the negative self-talk and the blocks. And I mean, blocks could be from your history, right? There can be lots of blocks from the past as well. But you start to think, at least for me, because it's not like I was an overnight success. I mean, I'm still trying to succeed, right? I mean, so how do you start to manage those thoughts and those blocks and those feelings? And I'll tell you straight up, I've had many multiple coaches, and I've gained some things from most of them, some of them not so much. But it's still really hard, even when you have somebody there to help you, you know. And I'm a coach too, to a degree, right? I'm helping people through their health struggles. So anyway, how do you manage all of these thoughts and doubts?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, my approach is that we have to think about supporting ourselves from a holistic perspective, right? A whole person perspective. Because certainly we have thoughts that are not helpful for us to have, right? We can go in spinning and doubting and all of that. And there are certain ways that we can work with ourselves on our mindset, but that is only one piece of the puzzle, right? Just like what you do with nutrition and functional medicine, right? And so the way that I approach it is, we want to make sure I'm supporting my clients with their mindset, their thought patterns and beliefs, and I can talk more about how we do that. We also want to take a look at the emotions, even separate from the thoughts, because we can have emotions rise in the body, and all the best tricks with our mind are not going to eliminate those emotions. And I think sometimes we think we can override them with thoughts, and we can't. So then we have to have support as well from an emotional standpoint. We also need to understand what it looks like to really understanding our nervous system, right? And what it looks like when we're having these trauma responses that we may not even recognize as such, right? And then the fourth piece that I think we need to understand as human beings, like all of your listeners, as we support ourselves in creating any kind of change, is that even looking at the behaviors and the actions that are, of course, driven by these thoughts and emotions. And so kind of bringing this all together, and we can, get more specific about this, but when it comes to supporting ourselves in doing big things, in managing so many new things at once, so many different skills, so many things to learn, I believe we have to have a comprehensive self-care plan for ourselves. And as a coach, right, my coaches work with their clients to support them with understanding their brain and thought patterns, attending to emotional needs, creating greater nervous system regulation, and the right types of habits that will build in a supportive structure for ourselves as we move forward. So hopefully that kind of brings it all together. But of course, ask me more.
I mean, there's so much there. I mean, you had those little 4 bullet points right there. But I think, going into emotions, I mean, we all know that we're emotional beings, right? And
yes,
our emotions can take over. And we can, I think also we can believe that our emotions are, so I'm going to say this and I don't know how to say it properly, but we believe our emotions are fact. That's what it is. So I was going to say real, right? So our emotions are real, but they're not necessarily fact, right? We base a lot of our world sometimes around our emotions instead of based on true fact. And so how do we do that? How do we manage those emotions and understand that that's what it is an emotion?
Yeah, I love this question because I think the answer is a bit nuanced, because it's true, when we have an emotion, we don't necessarily need to believe that emotion is true. Like, we don't have to believe our feelings. And yet, I want to make this very clear as well. It's also important that we don't dismiss or minimize our feelings.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that's where we can get, where people can get a little confused thinking, okay, this is, we say things like, this is just an emotional reaction. I don't need to be emotional about this. I need to think logically and practically about this. And while sometimes that can be helpful, I actually think it is much more useful for us to give a little bit of space to the emotions that come up. What this might look like, right, is, let's imagine that I'm sitting down to work on my next project, and I'm feeling really anxious, and I'm feeling fearful. Well, if I believe those emotions as fact or true, or made them mean, oh, this must be a bad idea because I'm feeling this, right? Then I might say, oh, well, I should shut this project down, right? And so that would be, if we're going to separate this out between that being like just believing emotions as fact and just like allowing them to dictate whatever we do, not very helpful, right?
Right.
So then if we go to the other extreme of this, that's where we might say, I'm not going to pay attention to this feeling. I'm going to, just be logical, and I'm just going to rely on my mind, and I'm going to minimize and dismiss these thoughts. Not that we would say that, right? But that's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really work, because inevitably those feelings are going to continue to come up. And actually, in truth, studies show that when people have a strong emotional intellect and they're in tune with their emotions, they're actually able to make better decisions. So sometimes we think about being logical as the way we make the best decisions, but we actually need a strong cognition, and we also need to be in tune with our emotions. So all this being said, what's the answer to this? This is my suggestion for this, and that is, when we start having a big emotion coming up, instead of just shoving it aside or trying to push it down, we want to give a little bit of space to that. It's just like anyone listening that has ever had kids. You know what it's like when your toddler is like, mom, 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 right? And if I say, just a minute, just a minute, just a minute, they're going to keep pushing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But if I can give a little bit of time and attention, even if it's something like, hey, I hear that you need something, I'm going to be with you in 5 minutes or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
To attend to it. Okay, now they're calmed down, right? And so it's really, we can kind of think of it as the same thing. If we try to push those emotions down, they're just going to keep coming back to us.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, if I'm sitting to go after my next project and I'm having these emotions come up, it's a perfect time to just get curious. And there are a lot of ways we can do this, right? We can spend some time journaling and writing out all the feelings and fears that we're having. I think tapping is a fantastic way that we can process emotions, even verbally processing our emotions. And so I think what I want to emphasize with this is, you know, the feelings that can seem overwhelming, the biggest reason they overwhelm us is because we're trying to resist them and push away from them, and we're scared of them. When instead, as human beings, we can create healthier practices of not being so afraid of our emotions and also not believing they're a problem. And we can actually learn to process them and make space for them a little bit more. What usually happens, and what would happen in that case for me if I'm doing a new project, is me processing and allowing those emotions to be heard and seen is going to give me the clarity that I need. You know, it may point out to me, okay, maybe some of these fears I'm feeling are valid things to look at, right? Or maybe I'm realizing this is just a fear, and now that I see it, I can relax and I can be more focused.
So in my mind, it goes back to, if you actually sit down, pay attention to yourself, which means listening to your emotions and not just going, I think so often emotions just create that knee-jerk reaction, or it's shoved down, right? So
that's right.
So neither one of those are ideal. We want to understand it, sit with it, figure it out, whether it's alone journaling or we need a coach to help us through it, to open up to it. That's how I am. They are useful. It's all useful and can help us understand us better and then how to move forward. Yes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, you know, I mean, we cannot outrun our emotions. We cannot not outthink our emotions. They really are, they matter and they're important, and if we don't process them, they will cause problems for us, even in the body, right? As you know.
Yes, they definitely manifest physically, for sure.
Yes.
So how do we, so say we're dealing with the emotions that we have now. How do we know and understand emotional blocks? How do we know that there's something that is blocking us? There's I don't know if it's it's now the thing, right? I'm blocked. I don't know how to unblock. And I hear this and I know it's a real thing, but it's hard to grasp, I think, and understand that you have a block, that you don't know that you have a block that could have happened from when you were 5 and it's impacting you today when you're 50. So how do you manage that?
Yes. Okay, so first, and I know you've mentioned this a couple times, but I mean, I have to say it, I think everybody should have a coach, right? And I mean, if someone wants a coach, I have phenomenal coaches that I train, I can send you, their way. But I always have at least one coach, because I really think that we can see a lot. We can be, I mean, I'm sure you relate to this. I'm pretty self-aware, and yet, wow, do I see a limited view of myself, even as self-aware as I am. And so I think, first of all, absolutely, if you're interested in better understanding yourself and growing and accomplishing something new, you 100% have to have a coach, because they will help you with it. As far as emotional blocks, I think that there is a lot of value in, just like we've said, having regular check-ins with yourself, morning and night, how you're feeling, writing things down. Oftentimes we'll find the patterns, right? Or we may notice when we go to a certain project or task every time, that we have a familiar, ineffective action come up for us, right? And so it's like anytime we notice that there is something that suddenly we can't really remember what we were doing, or we just get stuck. I'll give you an example. So I have a client she's a brilliant coach. She is so skilled and so good at what she does, and kind of like you were talking about earlier, just because she's a great coach doesn't mean she doesn't have her own blocks in her business building, right? And so she came to a project where she's building this part of her program out, and she just felt frozen. You know, she's like, I'm coming and I can't seem to figure out where to begin. And I've seen this happen for her more than once. And as I'm listening to it from the outside, right, it doesn't make any sense to me that she would be stuck in a practical sense, because she's highly intelligent. She knows exactly what to do, and everything is laid out for her, right? And so this is an example of an indication that the symptom of being blocked, right, is that she's having complete confusion. She's feeling frozen. Even though a part of her knows, we've talked about this before, and everything's laid out, she can't move forward, right? So that would be an indication that that's happening for her.
Yeah. So interesting. Yeah, and I can relate.
Oh, I know, me too. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I can help my clients with things, and then when it comes to me, you would think I didn't even have a clue as to what I was doing, because the thing I can coach 10 people on one after the other, when it comes to me, I can't see it in my own life.
It's a totally different story. It's like it's always this super blind spot when you're looking at your own stuff. And I think there's so much judgment when you're looking at your own stuff.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, and I'll give a plug for this, because, you know, one of the things that we've all heard different iterations of this, right? But it's this idea that the degree to which we can grow has a direct relationship to the amount of truth we're able to see about ourselves, right? The more we're able to see ourselves and what's true, and even take feedback, right, and improve things, that's how we grow. And so if we think about it, if any one of you listening, if you taking the time to look at yourself and look at what things are true about you, maybe great or not so great things, right? Like, if the more we're able to look at that, the more growth we're able to create. But the problem is that if my experience of looking at myself and what's happening is one of, what's wrong with you? Why do you always do this? When are you going to stop doing this? When are you going to figure this out? I can't believe, right? If that's my experience with myself, how often am I going to want to self-reflect and look at the truth, and how effective is it going to be? So I'm a huge believer that when we can cultivate with ourselves a really nurturing relationship, where when we're having a block, instead of what's wrong with me, saying, ooh, something must be feeling hard or scary in my brain and in my body. Almost this experience of how you would treat a child, right? Like, hey, what's going on for me, right? What am I feeling worried about? And it's like when we can really have a relationship with ourselves that is rooted in self-compassion and love and kindness and care, that will automatically create a sense of safety for ourselves and in our body, which allows us to actually see what's going on for us.
Yeah. Something that's coming to me is, I think that so much of I'm thinking both physically and emotionally, when we have these things that are happening, right? Emotional blocks. Is it not, to a degree, and sometimes it goes too far, but protective. So
absolutely.
I say this a lot when I'm talking with my clients and patients who are struggling with autoimmune disease. What do they say? Or actually, it's any kind of what we call dysfunction. It's easy. We understand what dysfunction means, right? But I would argue that it's less dysfunction and more body protecting. The body's protecting us the best way it knows how with all that it has, because it may not have all that it needs, right? We become nutrient deficient. Our body's fighting and struggling. It uses up nutrients. We don't have nutrients to use for the body, so it does what it knows how to do. Its ultimate goal is to keep us alive. And so our brain's ultimate goal is to keep us alive. It's to protect us. It's to protect us from what could be out there, from the scary things that could be out there, which it goes too far. Take Alzheimer's, for instance. It lays down those plaques as a protective mechanism. It's gone too far, but it's doing what it knows how to do. And so I see this, I tend to picture things in my brain, and this is kind of, to me, it relates so much, because we are, the body, the brain is just trying to protect us, but we got to be able to learn that, understand it, and then be able to move past it. Yeah?
Yes, exactly. And that's why, that's part of the reason why that compassion for self is so important, right? Because that's going to allow us to feel safer. But, when you were saying that, I was thinking about the same client that I referenced, right? So there she is, she has the list, she knows what to do, and yet she's saying to me, like, I don't even know where to begin. Like, I can't think, I'm frozen, you know? And then, of course, as I work with her and we talk about it, and we find out, like, what emotions are coming up for her, and we find out, like, some of the thoughts that are flowing in, what's going on for her, well, she has a very, very strong block that can come up around wanting to get it right, needing to get it right. And if I don't get it right, what is the consequence of that, right?
Yeah.
And so of course this like relates back to when there was always a lot of pressure to get it right. And so there it is this protective mechanism in her, right? Because if there is a part of her that is terrified of getting something wrong, then wouldn't it make sense that her brain would completely shut down and prevent her from taking action, because that action might be not the right action. Yeah, so it is, it's protective.
Yeah, and it's a scary place to be wrong. But it's being wrong or making mistakes that takes us into a place where we learn, oh, that wasn't right? It can be as severe as getting fired or losing your business, which these things suck, but almost every time that happens, there's something better that comes on the other side of it, right? Yes,
that's right, that's right. And one thing that's a really small thing that can be tremendously helpful is even, if you're working on something and you're noticing emotions coming up or some resistance or just like a little bit of activation, just saying out loud, I'm working on this project and right now I'm safe. Just saying that, it communicates to your brain, to your nervous system, I am safe. It's a reminder. And so even though that seems like a small thing, it's a really big thing in terms of helping us to move forward.
I love that, and it's a perfect segue because I want to talk about the nervous system. Because we live in a world, and I mean this is what I see day in and day out, right? People say, okay, what is the biggest push to disease, right? Well, it's going to be stress. So, and when we think of stress, I think often we're thinking, okay, it's work stress, it's emotional stress, it's I'm stressed at work. I already said that, but my relationship, I'm stressed. Those kinds of things. But it's the stress that creates the inflammatory response. The inflammatory response creates stress. Then there's another inflammatory response, and then we start to get symptoms, and then we get more inflammation and more stress. and then more symptoms and more inflammation and then disease and more inflammation and more stress. So everything, no matter what, is going to go up to this place where it's stress. It is like the number one, because everything can cause stress. So that's sort of, we do anything in our mental, emotional, physical space that is going to has the potential to be a game changer. It's to bring that stress in any area. If you have all of these areas, start with one and bring it down, right? And try to find that place where you find, okay, let's get out of the sympathetic, which is the crazy, the go, to the parasympathetic, the rest and digest. And I want to know, so this is what I see from my perspective. So from your perspective, what are you seeing as far as the nervous system and how it plays a role?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this comes into play for my clients in so many ways, right? Because my coaches are working with, moms and women who are getting help with their career or, relationships, all of that. So, but in terms of my clients who I'm supporting as they're learning as coaches and building their business, we're so used to being in go mode and overworking that we kind of minimize it and don't realize that it is a sympathetic nervous system response when we're in that place, right? Because it's like, okay, our brain, we want to be efficient, and we work on autopilot in that mode. And I don't think most people realize the state of stress that they're in most of the time. Would you agree? Would you say
totally
you see that
agree?
Too? Yeah.
Most everybody I talk to believes that they are not stressed, but they are in a downward cycle of symptom and disease. I'm like, you can't tell me you're not stressed.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, I think, one of the things that we do is we study the nervous system and also understand our own bodies, right? Like, what does it look like for you when you're going into this state of stress? And this really requires us to be very attuned to our bodies and to notice more often.
Yeah.
Because, when we can be in that parasympathetic nervous system state, that is where, especially when I'm talking with my coaches, the parasympathetic nervous system state is where we have the most access to our prefrontal cortex, which is that CEO brain. That is where we can plan. That is where we can have creativity. All of the skills and abilities that my clients need as coaches and as business owners require a strong, a lot of access to that prefrontal cortex. And so it's kind of an ongoing thing of them learning themselves and learning and understand how to create that calm and grounded state more often.
So I learned something recently, and I wish that I could remember exactly what it was, but probably anybody who's on X or whatever has seen this, because I've seen it now multiple times, but it was back in the 40s. A dad, he was also a scientist, figured out how to get his kids into the alpha waves, which is that sort of calm, creative, accessing that place that helps you to see more, to create more, to be able to do more, right? I'm not saying this very well because it's not very sciencey, but what I found, because I started following the very simple method that he designed for his children to calm the body. So I talk to people all the time about meditating. People are like, no, I can't meditate. My brain, it just goes and goes. I'm like, everybody's brain goes and goes. That's why it's a practice. But what he suggests, which is so simple, and probably a lot of people do, but I've never done it, is you sit there, you close your eyes, and you count backwards from 100, and you visualize the numbers. And so my husband will visualize writing them. I'll visualize them flipping like a flip clock. And the brain does go a little bit, but as you get to that lower, and then you're moving into what your goals are, so you're kind of focusing on your goals and what your plans are, or if there's a problem and what that is, you are at that point, interestingly, and you get to one, you start to think about those goals, and it's so much more simple to be calm and keep your eyes closed and to not chicken brain it, right, or squirrel brain it. And it's really fascinating how it will go. I mean, I'll be in 10 and still my brain will kind of be going, but once I hit that 1 and start focusing on my goals, I can truly focus, and it's like I don't want to come out of it. It's really interesting. That would be, I think that's my new way of helping people very easily, simply do just a few minutes of being still, is visualize the numbers counting backwards from 100. Even if you don't do the rest of it, just calm, just bring it down, you know? Yeah.
And there are so many different ways we can achieve more of that relaxed state. And I love that as an option. And what's funny about it is that the problem is the reason that most people don't do those things to bring themselves down is because they just don't have time for that. Well, it'd be great if I had time to do that. It'd be great if I had time. And you know, this is one of the things that my clients have heard me say over and over again, is that if we're rushing and hustling to build a business, you are really just having those overworking patterns more deeply ingrained in your brain and in your body. And if we think about it, if we want to be smart and strategic and creative, we absolutely need to take that time, right? And so if you wanna waste time, stay in hyperactive overdoing mode, and you'll waste plenty of time. But if you don't have time to change your state, then that's exactly what you need to do.
It's so true, and it is. I mean, I agree with you. I am in that place probably every day as anybody else who is out there, whether you're growing a business or you're in the executive level or you're just a hard ass worker, right? I mean, it's just life where time is hard. But it is fascinating that if I take care of me, then I can take care of everybody who I have to take care of. If I don't take care of me, it's lost, right? Yeah. It will go downhill. I won't have enough of me to give if I don't take care of me. And so we have to, those of us who do see, especially the critically ill and or those who are just struggling, like, I'm gonna have to close my doors, what can I do? It's these places where you have to be able to dig in, focus hard, but you have to have the capacity. And if you don't focus on you, you don't have the capacity.
That's right. I mean, that's it. And you know, I think sometimes we hear capacity and people think about just being able to do more and juggle more things and spread ourselves thin so we can have a greater capacity, but that's not going to increase your capacity. That's going to expedite burnout. And so the true way that we increase our capacity internally so that we have the resources internally is by putting ourselves in a parasympathetic nervous system state, is by grounding us. That's how we can be just more effective, more present, and just feel more of a deeper sense of peace.
Yeah. So I want to add to that, because you said it in a different way, but the grounding. One of the simple things to do to focus on you is, you can't do it when it's 6 degrees outside, or maybe you can. I can't, but I don't want to. But you go outside and you walk in the grass. I mean, that's the stuff that will give. It will calm the body and give you energy, because we are energetic beings. It's so important to take that in, to not be afraid of the sun. I can't say this enough. We have been. I'm thinking of these words that are not the right word, but we have been told to be afraid of the sun, and it's a terrible, terrible lie. We've got to get out in the sun, and we have to take it in. We've got to utilize all of these beautiful resources that God gave us, that is intended to literally ground us, and bring us into that calm state so that we do have the capacity, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
So, what you're saying, I mean, a minute ago also, when you're kind of, you're in that place of things just sort of spinning out of control, it made me think of how we often don't know how to bring everything that we want to do into this one thing, which is a niche, right? And I think I hear this from old entrepreneurs, from new entrepreneurs, from myself. It's like, I can serve everyone. And in my mind, when we're talking about this serving everyone, it's spreading us thin. It's creating more stress. It's creating more of what we don't want. And then there's also the fear when you're in that place where you can't niche, and I'm talking to myself right now too, but you're in that place where you can't niche. You're in a place to where you can't focus, and it's a place of fear, because you're like, what am I going to miss out on? If I do just this, what am I going to miss out on? I'm going to miss out on all of these other things. And so how do you work with people on that piece of it? Because I feel like that one little thing can just take the nervous system and just go completely haywire.
Yes. So here's my philosophy or guidance on this, I guess I would say, because I have, all the time coaches coming to me and saying like, I need to niche down, or I don't want to niche down, but I know that I'm supposed to. It's like such a thing, right?
Yeah.
And here's what I say. The whole point of having a niche is to make your life and your business and your effectiveness, your marketing, everything better, right, and easier. And so I think that it's kind of like, if being in a panic that you need to pick a niche is causing a problem for you, then we can just drop the whole thing and we can have a totally different approach. And so sometimes what that looks like is, let's say my client, maybe they're newer, like they love coaching and they just haven't quite figured it out yet. And so sometimes it can be more of a stress if you're trying to push them, like shove them into a box, and it's not working for them. And so typically what I say is, okay, we can keep, your business broad, and within that, what is one of the problems that you solve? What is one of the things that you speak to? And then we kind of move into designing like a specific program around that, a specific message around it, so they can start moving forward and getting some traction. And so it gives the benefit of having a specific focus while also leaving that openness. And that works really well for a lot of coaches. And sometimes people stay that way, and sometimes it ends up, evolving into something more specific. And the flip side of that, if someone really, I'm going to use the word should, but like I'm going to explain this, right? If someone should have a niche, meaning they know it, they feel it, they want to do it, but they're just scared to do it. And so therefore they're kind of in a place like you were saying, like, well, I don't want to miss out on everyone and I can't help everyone. That is really a matter of working with my clients on their thoughts, on their beliefs, on their fears, and helping them to really, what this might look like is narrowing down, like, what are you afraid of, right? Well, I'm afraid that I won't be helping as many people as I could, right? And so that's when we can say, okay, well, if this is the fear, let's look at some of the facts around this, right? We're understanding when you say something more specific, you're more likely to get people's interest and therefore help more people, right? It's kind of like if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one.
Right.
And so essentially there are different ways you can take a look at what are the fears, and then you can challenge them with thoughts, or you can take a look at the emotions and just help people to kind of rid themselves of some of those blocks so that they can move forward. So hopefully that makes sense on both ends.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm super curious, what is your favorite client story?
Oh gosh. I mean, here's the thing. My favorite part about my work is the personal transformation that happens for my clients. Yes, they create businesses. Yes, they help people. But watching, and that all comes from it, right? But watching that and experiencing them with that is incredible. And I will never forget, I got an email from one of my clients, and she was just finishing up one of my trainings. I don't even remember which one it was, if it was more business focused or coaching mastery focused, but she sent me an email and she said, you know, this work that we have done has changed how I feel about myself every day. She said, I'm a better partner, I'm a better mom, I'm a better friend, I am just more available and more connected to everything and everyone in my life. Everything has opened up. And it just, you know, to me that's what it's all about, because you know, that's what everyone wants. Everyone just wants to feel good. We want to feel at peace with ourselves. We want to have, you know, positive connections and relationships, and to think that I can be even just like a small piece of, you know, helping my clients to invite more of that in their lives. That's what it's about, more so than, you know, how much money you make in your business.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Although money is important, you know, I think a lot of us go into it as well going, I don't need the money, I just want to do good. And that's awesome. I mean, I think it's great, but we gotta live. Living is important.
Well, and here's the thing I will say about that, because I certainly don't mean to minimize the money, because our relationship with money and our ability to earn money is a big part of it.
Yes.
Right? And so as we're getting to know ourselves and our desires, all this internal work, when we can look at the ways we relate to money and why we believe we should have it or shouldn't have it, I think money is an important piece of the equation, not only for the fact that we need to live, but also even those internal growth reasons as well.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, you know, a lot of times, and I was one of those, again, a lot of what I say comes from my own experience, my own feelings, my own thoughts, especially early on, but it was, you know, I just need enough to live. Well, what about needing enough to be able to put other people to work, right? What about, I mean, I think these are the things that I think of now is, am I able to employ others? And how is that going to build our society is helping to build others, right? And so I think it is important, it's an important mindset to have, depending on your goals, right? I'm not you know, putting my thoughts on everyone. It depends on your goals, but it is an important piece of owning, running, managing a business, and you know, people.
It's a hugely important part of it. And we all have speaking of blocks, we all have a lot of blocks and issues with money.
Oh yeah.
And I believe that the more money we can get in the hands of good people, the better. Because money, it's just a resource, right? And if you have a good heart and good desires and you have more money, you're just going to do more good. I mean, I just believe that to be true. And, you know, as I'm, you know, building my own financial future and building in more space for myself in my life, I realize that the more space I have, the more good I'm going to be able to do. So
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. So believe it or not, we're at our hour. It always goes so fast. It's kind of amazing to me. But this has been really, really great. I want to make sure a couple of things that if there's anything that you want to add that we do, and make sure people know where to find you.
Yeah. So thanks for having me. This has been an awesome conversation. Anyone who would like to connect with me, you can find me at mollyclaire.com. So I do advanced trainings for coaches, of course, and then I also have a personal development membership that is just supportive of people who are, you know, developing themselves, oftentimes, you know, entrepreneurs kind of juggling that stuff. So, but you can find all the details at mollyclaire.com, and I do have a podcast, the Masterful Coach podcast, and so you can find more there. And yeah, I would love to connect. Find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Molly Claire Coaching. pretty easy.
Wonderful. Well, we have everything Molly Claire tagged in everything that we're doing, right? So all of your website and your podcast. I think I did the podcast. I think it's all, at least at this point, and then we'll do the rest as we continue to upload. But it's all there. It's all there. So reach out to her. Thank you so much. It's been really, really a fun show, and I think it can be so eye-opening, even if it is to learn that we have more to learn about us, that I have more to learn about me, and always will, right? I have a client. Oh, she's the sweetest thing. 65, 67, something like that, I think. And she always talks about her child. Child. She's like, I have this child in me that just says no, and I don't want to. So we're talking about food, or we're talking about, taking your supplement. She's like, this child just always says no. Like, that's okay, And so we can put that child at ease. So I think we all have that child, but she knows it about herself, and I love it because she talks about her child, and it's just the cutest thing.
Yes. I know. Well, it's so funny you say that. I was just telling my coach this morning, I said, somewhere between 3 and 3:49 this morning, because I was up and I was having sitting thoughts and stuff.
Oh my goodness.
I told her, I said, sometime between that time, I was sure that I was going to be destitute and my business was failing, and I thought I should quit. And I'm like, so then I told myself, oh, Molly, it's okay. We don't make business decisions at 3 in the morning. Go to sleep and we'll talk in the morning.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that. Well, at least you went back to sleep. I got up at 3:45, which is not ideal, but I did. So I don't like to get up that early. But anyway, it's the way it goes sometimes. But thank you so much. Reach out to Molly, check her out, check out her podcast, all of the cool things. She's got some really, really great content, great things to say, a lot to teach. I need to learn more. I need you to teach me. So this is all.
Let's do it.
Yeah. This is all really amazing stuff. If you have questions, then of course you can reach out to me. You could go to tastelifenutrition.com. Taste Life Nutrition, all of the socials. I do have a assessment that you can fill out on the website if you are struggling, have some symptoms, some things that you're dealing with. If I can help you, we'll sit and we'll chat about it. If I know people who can help you, because I seem to have access to a lot of really cool people around me, mostly because of this show. But people they do amazing things, and I love people who think outside the box, and that's what I want. That's what I want for the people who join me. That's what I want for this show, and for myself, is I want to think outside the box and do my best to serve for however long I'm here. So reach out, let me know what I can do for you. Reach out to Molly Claire, and we will see you all next week, 10 a.m. on kuhsdenver.com. See you later. Bye. Give me 1 second.